Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome back to Tekpon. Today our guest is Clément, the founding partner at the Growth Syndicate. Hello.
Hey Christian, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining our podcast. We met at so many events with the team and we see the Growth Syndicate everywhere in the B2B world, especially in Amsterdam, which was our most visited city this year for B2B SaaS conferences. So I'm super
Nice.
excited about this podcast. At first, please tell us more about the company and how you're helping B2B SaaS companies.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for having me, Christian. So I think what we do at the Growth Syndicate is we help B2B tech companies in the range of 1 to 100 million ARR to actually grow their revenue. Okay, so put simply, we're experts that help companies with a growth strategy and a growth execution. You can see us as kind of a growth team for hire to make it easy. Where did this come from? So all the founders and everybody working in the company, we have at least 10 years of experience in growth marketing, from executional to managing, CMO, VP, head of growth roles. What we saw is that in the companies we worked previously, usually if you want external help, right, you have two routes that you can go, or you go with a consultant. So what we identify is that often consultants are really good with the strategy, but they kind of lack the execution. And on the other hand, if you work with an agency, really often you talk to someone really smart, someone really on top of it, and then you have someone more junior that actually execute the words, which also they like working retainers. So, they want to keep pushing what they do well, to keep you as long as possible. So what happened is, like, at the beginning of this year, I was meeting Ferdinand and Jolene. So I was freelancing for a couple of years. Ferdinand just sold his company and Jolene was also looking for a new adventure, and we met for dinner. And going to the dinner, we all realized that why don't we do this together? So a month later, we created a company. So this is a little bit how it started. And what we realized is that you have this gap in the market, I think, for quality kind of model that sits between a consultant and agency to really bring value. So this is why we created the Growth Syndicate. So what we do a little bit differently is we have, first of all of us have B2B tech experience, more than 10 years of experience working at super relevant startup and scale-up companies. So we know what we're talking about.
Yes.
Everybody we hire in the team, they have a specialty, but they have plus 7 or 8 years of experience working. So we have people with PhD in data, have been working in paid performance for the last 9+ years. So they know the ins and outs. The way we work as well, obviously, is that we do contracts usually of 6 to 9 months. Mm-hmm. Okay. We always say that a client can fire us whenever they want. Okay. So this is really important. I think if we don't do a good job, you're not happy, fire us whenever you want. We don't want to stick around. We do the strategy, but also the execution. You always have most of the team available for each client, because with the business model we have is obviously we're more on the premium side based on our experience and what we can deliver. So we don't need to have 100 clients at once. We only work with a handful of customers at one point to make sure, we can give the right attention to everybody. We don't work on price per hours. It's a fixed price per month. We don't count our hours. And we all say within 9 months max, we want to be out. Okay. Because we always believe that what important is actually in-house team. So the end goal is always to help them build the in-house team. So once you identify the growth levers, how the team should look like, where it should focus, then we also help them to hire, the right marketing team, and make sure that they're onboarded and they can start delivering. Because obviously, if you look at the head of growth, I think it's one of the most mismatched roles hired out there, because you have so many different profiles of a head of growth, and it depends on your phase you're in, depends on your industry, depends on a lot of factors. So this is a little bit where we sit in this context.
Yeah, I have so many questions, but let's start with the basic. So it's not only for B2B SaaS, but any B2B brand, right? Are there any specific industries, just so people know if they can?
No, so we really focus on all of them because we work in a lot of industries across your experience, right? So we really focus on B2B tech. So we have SaaS companies, but we also have companies in the manufacturing industries. We have companies in biotech. We have the more classical SaaS company, in human resources. So we have all the different business models. But the thing is that we've worked already with a lot of these industries, and then we identify really quickly the synergies. So that's something we said. And since we have all this experience as well, we also don't shy away from complex industries, because we really like this. It's a good challenge for us, and we have the expertise to help. So I think as well, this is where we have a differentiator with a lot of companies, is that we're not scared of entering, biotech companies where, per definition, we're not scientists. So it's, you have to crack that a little bit.
But I guess there are also more opportunities. It's harder to actually start, but since nobody is doing this, it can make it even greater, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and you said between 1 million and 100 million in revenue. I guess the minimum 1 million is in order to have a product market fit and something that's sellable, right? Because otherwise you cannot do magic. And why
Exactly. So
maximum 100?
yeah, exactly. So I think you put it really well. So at the beginning, we're discussing with companies that were, pre-million or like didn't have a million in funding. And obviously we're a bit more of a premium service because we have the quality and the experience that backs this up. So the original thing, what we think is that before a million, what you really need is, this founder-led growth. I mean, you probably know about this, Christian. Like the founders have to hustle, the current team has to hustle. If you don't have a product market fit, we can do all the magic marketing, all the magic growth you want in the world. It's not going to help you to sell your product. So first of all,
Yes.
you have to figure out your core basics. We don't go after 100 because also we realize that those are then companies that are way more established that usually already do a good role, good job. Otherwise, you don't make it to 100. And we also want to avoid because we come from the startup, the scale up vibe, so we want to move fast. We
Yes.
know what to do, we want to execute. We also want to avoid a bit all the politic games,
Yes.
that can
Yes.
happen in companies a bit later on that can slow down the process, just
Yes.
for company culture things.
Yeah, perfect answer. And this will be also the definition for me from now on. 1 million to 100 million is the best time, most fun, best growth, and yeah, simply the best.
Exactly. Just steal it.
Okay. When should the B2B company come to the Growth Syndicate? What problems they're facing? What are their needs? And how
Yeah.
you can actually help them? Because you have a lot of services. You can build departments, you can build the hiring, you can build the marketing, the growth. So please, let's talk about this further.
Yeah, 100%. So I think we fit in different models, in different stages. So we have companies that are in the early 2-3 million that never had a marketing team in place or growth strategy. They have no idea how to start, right? So what we do here is that we come as we are your growth team, we are your growth marketing, and we're going to figure out everything for you and we're going to put you on track.
Mm-hmm.
We also have companies that are a bit more advanced, that already do like 40, 50 or 60 million AR, where they have a marketing team in place or, but it's not performing as it should. Or it was companies that were mostly sales led and they hit a ceiling and they don't know how to keep growing, right?
Yeah.
So we have two models where, or we start everything from scratch and we're the head of growth, or we join companies with a marketing team already. We have clients that have like 10 people in the marketing team, and then we join more as a kind of a CEO, kind of sparring partner to help them work on the best possible way. Make sure it's structured, they work on the right, on the right things. So kind of like this leadership role that we can bring within companies.
Okay, I understand. And what about the services? So many, right?
The ones we offer, even?
Yes.
Yeah, so I can explain maybe a little bit the way we work because I think it can be an interesting approach for
Let's
people
say from
to understand.
Day zero, you do an analysis, I guess, to start everything off, and then what happens?
Yeah, so we have kind of a playbook. So what we want to do is help clients to build what we call kind of a predictable growth engine. Okay, so this is our end goal. The way we go is that we have a playbook. We have a framework that we follow that we then tailor to the company needs. Right. So because we always start with a strategy. So often the first, 4 to 6 weeks are heavily in strategy. So what we always do at the beginning, because we need a strong foundation to build on top. If you don't know the basic things, what are you going to do afterwards? Makes no sense. So what we always start is kind of we dive into the company. We talk to the key stakeholders. We have kind of like onboarding questions to start understanding the company and what they do and etc. Then we dive into an ICP and positioning exercise. Because a lot of companies say, hey, we know our ICP, and then you dive into it and like we have 10 ICPs, and like there's no way you can focus on 10 ICPs with no marketing team.
Right.
So we help them to focus their effort and dive into the positioning. Then we do a brand messaging exercise. So we try to avoid all the fluffy stuff that a lot of agents or consultants do. We really do stuff that have business value and we can use after marketing efforts. So we not here to waste time for everybody. And in parallel, we do an audit. So what's currently working, we do a competitor analysis. When we have this, it takes about 4 weeks, more or less. Then we have a strong foundation understanding of the company and where to go. Okay. What's really interesting as well is that after we move into execution phase. Okay. So at the end of the strategy, we create what we call growth levers. So this is a list of kind of like short, mid, long-term strategies that we can implement.
Okay.
And after that, we move into the execution phase. What's important as well is that we're not here to reinvent the wheel. So sometimes we're going to clients and the ICP positioning is really good. So we don't redo the exercise, right? It's here. We analyze it. If it's good, we move forward. And it just goes we just move faster into the execution. I think that's something that's important. We're not here to waste time. We're really here to, deliver value as fast as we can. And even during the strategy session, if we identify low-hanging fruits, we start executing. Why waiting if we already know that a few things, have to be improved? And after that, we move towards the execution phase, where based on our experience, we have different areas of expertise, right? So, for example, I'm really good with expanding. I expanded a lot of companies in different countries, right? So if you need to expand your company to a new market, we can help with this. I can help with growing or identifying, your team or identifying growth levers. We have people that are really good with thought leadership. We have people that are really good with PLG, people really good with Dimension. So we bring the best person needed for the execution to execute on certain tasks. So I think that's a bit the power we have, is that the full company will join to help a client if needed on specific aspects. And we always make sure that you have the best person in for the job, basically.
And there is no, let's say, specific marketing strategies. You can do it all. So not only SEO or not only cold outreach and so on. It can be anything depending on the case.
Yeah, so we do everything. And since we also don't do only marketing, right? So we look at the growth thing. So we have clients in the SaaS. We also look at the product. We're also going to look at the pricing structure. We're also going to work with sales, to understand the sales process and see how we can help them as well implement. So we look at the full thing and we don't get stuck in a little box that's actually not going to move the needle. It's just to do work to look busy. Yeah.
And how would you define the growth part of it? Because as you said, head of growth means a lot of things. Is it related to customers, revenue, number of leads? How do you... I'm curious about your position because you are the Growth Syndicate, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think the Growth Syndicate is more of I see it for me more as of a mindset, right? It's more about bringing this growth mindset in companies to help them, test, move faster with things, and focus on the right thing. So that's a little bit how I see the growth term, to put it, generic. I don't think it's a marketing thing. I think it's a company-wide strategy. So that's also what we do with a lot of companies that we join, that I would say maybe a bit more early stage, I have like 20, 30 people. We help them as well, bringing this culture in the team to make sure, that they also move smarter, faster on the right direction.
You work with so many B2B companies. Did you see an impact by AI? Do they adapt faster? Are there some companies that still deny using it? Is it a game changer for most of them? How do you use it also internally? So because I believe for an agency, it's super helpful to create. It basically takes a lot of time away, right?
Yeah, 100%. So I think we're still on the infancy, right, of AI. So I think they still figure out where it's going to be. And I think it's really hard to tell where it's going to be in 3 to 5 years. So I think the way we see it now is that it has positive impact on certain things, and I would say less positive impact on other ones. I think to give a concrete example is that, the markets are becoming overly crowded. So you have more and more competitors on a certain niche, a certain market, right? If you look at the MarTech in 2011, there was like 150 companies. Right now, there's more than 15,000 companies. And that's also helped with AI, because what happens is that it's easier to build a product today without knowledge, with all the help of AI, but it doesn't mean that you're creating a good product, right? So it means that it's easier to get a first kind of version to go to market. But so I think there's more companies that are going to be created, but I think there's also more that are going to fail because they're not going to be able to adapt to this, right? So I think AI can really help as well in, if you look at, for example, content creation. I think, that's a good example. Someone that never been good in content can now create a 5 out of 10, article with ChatGPT in like 10 minutes. So I think AI is in that case, is gonna create kind of a medium level where everybody's going to be. And then the good ones are going to be on top and going to make the differentiation. And after, I think for us, something that really helpful with AI that we use quite a lot is we obviously have a lot of meetings, right? So you have a lot of discussion point, a lot of things that we want to do. So we use also AI in our case to summarize, meeting notes, create clear action, key plans, key notes for us to focus. So this is the kind of things, that you can save time internally. I would say that it's more process driven. And can help you to save time on tasks that before are just time consuming, but don't really add value. So I think those are the kind of things that AI can be really, really interesting for at this stage for us. Yeah.
And do you think the main difference between the successful B2B companies and the unsuccessful, the medium ones, the average ones that will be created, is given by the product or given by the marketing? because it's always a debate. And some
for me,
founders think that the product is everything, and this is the most important part, and happy users and so on. Others think that you can have an average product, but if you have really good marketing and a good channel and great distribution channels, this is the most important part. But today everything is changing, right? Because everyone can do marketing, not like in the past.
Exactly.
And everyone can build products.
Yeah, exactly. So I think everybody can build average marketing and build average products. So I think that's the key element right now in AI. For me, I think the most important one is the product. So obviously, if you look at B2B, SaaS companies, they're really product focused. What I see a lot of times is you can have an average product and a great, marketing on the side that will help you, to reach whatever, 10, 15, 100 million. However, it's going to be really hard to sustain this growth on the long term. So maybe you'll get a hype for a couple of years, but then the chances of the company failing are pretty high. What we see with a lot of companies, because we have clients I remember we have a client in the US, there's 3 people. They have a company that makes 8 to 10 million ARR, and they just have product market fit, but they don't even know, like how people end up in the product or what works, what doesn't, because they just build the product for a certain niche people and it works. And when you have a product like this, it's easy because we don't have to worry about the product. We just have to worry about the marketing plan. We know the product is there.
Yes.
Right. So I really think that for me, the most important thing is the product. Yeah. Product goes first. You should focus on the product. Founders should hustle, the first months, maybe a year. It should be a founder hustle effort to generate growth and sales. And after, you can move towards more marketing aspects, I think.
But also this is better for you because you can have massive results with a great product and you being an expert in marketing and growth and delivering some amazing value. But if the founders didn't build a good product, then they can blame it on you and it doesn't work. So I totally
exactly.
agree
But
with you.
I think the added value that we have is that we're not only focusing in marketing. So if the product is not good, we also dive into it and we're also going to call them and saying, hey, what we're doing here is great. This is the bottleneck, For example, you have a huge churn. Identify why your churn is so high. We're bringing people, but why do they churn? So, we bring this full vision and we don't stick only to marketing. So we also get there, to help them improve the product if needed.
What would you say are the biggest challenges that teams face when it comes to growth?
Oh, so that's a $1 million question. I think it's a really good one. I think one of them is having too many ICPs. So usually you see a combination of early stage startups where they want to focus on too many ICPs. They often don't have a lot of budget and they often have a limited team. Yeah. Okay. So I think it's a lot of question of focusing, right? So stop trying to do 10% for 10 ICPs and do 100% for one ICP.
Right.
Because that also helps you that the product goes in one direction, sales goes in one direction, marketing goes in one direction, and you're not, all over the place trying to figure it out. I think for me, this is one of the really important things that I see early companies, struggle with, and that they can definitely, we help a lot of companies with that aspect, and then we see really a big change.
And from your experience, what would you say is the, let's say, undervalued go-to-market strategy in 2025? For the next year, what should people focus on?
I think it's really industry specific, right? I think the one that people should focus on, but is also not something that's short term, I think is everything related to thought leadership, right? Okay. So I think that we see a lot of value. We have the years of growth hacking where, you could spend on SEO, spend on Google Ads. It would work relatively fast. It wouldn't be super expensive, but all those channels are saturated now, right? CPCs are crazy expensive on Google Ads, so your ROI is less. You have, 1,000 pieces of content that look the same for the same keyword. So, it's hard to cut through the noise. I think thought leadership, demand gen is something that's really important. So a lot of people focus on the 10% of clients that are currently in market, and they ignore the 90% that's currently not in market. The important part now is to focus on those 90% so that the moment they move into the in-market phase, then your company is top of mind, right? Because when you don't have a problem and all of a sudden you have a problem, a lot of us, for a lot of things, we have 2-3 companies that come in mind. And those are the 2 or 3 ones we're going to potentially use. So I think everything that comes about thought leadership demand gen is something that's coming back due to short channels being saturated. and we see, we push clients more and more. But obviously, this is more of a kind of a mid-long-term approach. But
Yes.
I think if you want to build a sustainable business, you really need this. Because otherwise, what you will do is like you will focus short-term strategies or like
Yes.
only target is 10%. You will grow really well. And of course, we also focus on this percent. We'll be crazy not to focus on people who actually want to buy from you. But what you will say at one point is that you will grow, and then you will stagnate.
Yes.
And then you'll be like, how do I do now? And the problem is that if at this moment, like you start investing in demand gen, thought leadership, is that you're going to have a lapse of time when you're not going to grow.
Exactly.
And that is going to get time to, to get those efforts paid back in business terms, right?
Yes.
So, I would say those are quite important.
I totally agree, and it's the same for us. People say that they see Tekpon everywhere, and whenever they get a marketing budget or they want more clients or they want to invest in some events and so on, they come directly to us or to be in the magazine or to the podcast because they see us every single day and they trust us, and we meet over and over again, and the trust is already there, and they know when they have the resources, they come directly to the people they trust. Same, I think, is the any niche in B2B SaaS.
I totally agree. And I think the beauty of the Growth Syndicate, they were like, we're all marketeers, like growth people that we've done this for a long time. So like now we're going to do it for the Growth Syndicate the way we like to do it. We have no one to report to in terms of ROI, like acquisition costs or whatever. We're just going to work on what we think makes sense for the mid-long-term sustainable of the company. So for it's crazy example is that we also have a podcast, right? Grow with the Flow. We interview a lot of people in B2B, like, we had April Dunford, Wes Bush, Nathan Latka, for example. If you look at our videos, because we started, 5-6 months ago, we publish every 2 weeks. We have an average of 100 views per video, and then after 20, 30 videos, it will be really easy to say, this doesn't work, we stop. The reality is that we have customers that when we talk to them, we're like, how did you hear about us? They're like, from the YouTube podcast.
Yes.
Right. So even if you have 100 views, if you're really niche and really doing a good job, people will notice.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
so this is
was
kind
the
of
first thing I said to you, right? When I joined today's call, I said, I saw your podcast with Stefan, with Wes.
Yeah, exactly.
So people remember, even if I was not in the views, and this is what I'm trying to explain to people. For example, if I post a podcast on my LinkedIn profile and the LinkedIn post gets, let's say, 5,000 impressions, but the episode gets 500, it doesn't mean 500 people watched it. 5,000 people saw it and have it in their memory somewhere, and they realize the association, and they think about the brand, they think about the guest, and you never know, because we post some podcasts and after a couple of days, somebody messages us, oh, let's do something together, because they were reminded about us, and I think the same for Growth Syndicate.
It's about creating quality touch points, right, at the end of the day, and not, it's about the dark funnel. You won't be able to track all your touch points. You just have to make sure that the touch points actually make sense and that you can identify that, okay, I'm targeting the right audience. People are you're not gonna convert from your podcast probably to Tekpon. You're not gonna have the magic link, right? There's gonna be other touch points. People are gonna see you at an event or things like this.
Exactly.
So, all this is something to keep in mind. And I think a lot of companies don't do it because they want to focus on the metrics, which is if we don't get customers, we're going to go bankrupt. Right. So you want to focus, your brain is focused on this short-term acquisition, which I also understand, but you also have to think about the mid-long term.
Yeah, you don't see the big picture. And I think this is crazy. But thank you so much for this value. I really appreciate it. I have one last question for you.
Sure.
I'd love to know your favorite software that you use and would recommend to other people.
My favorite software. It's a good question because the question we ask also in our podcast, right? Okay. We love to ask this question. And what we see is that marketeers are terrible with tools. I'm going to be
maybe more opportunities for Martech tools, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. No, I think I'm going to be really unoriginal. I think for me, my favorite tool, and that I'm surprised that nobody mentioned it on our podcast yet, is actually Slack. Just simply because it's not perfect like any tool, but I use it honestly several hours a day. Our team is really remote. So, it really helps us to achieve what we want to achieve. And it's kind of a central piece to our, internal communication, but also client communication, because we also have our clients linked to our Slack. Yes. So I think for me, I'm definitely going to put Slack as we will be way more, it would be way more difficult for us to achieve normal, proper communication without that tool.
I totally agree. And for me, it was in the top 10 most common answers. So people.
Oh, nice.
Nice. Depends. Yeah. So many tools that some people don't even know. They're using it and they're enjoying so much. But if you build a pain killer product, right? if you take Slack away, let's say tomorrow, we'll all suffer and want something similar urgently. But if you take something
believe me,
that's
because
nice to have,
because believe me, we have clients that use Teams as communication channel, and like I will never use that tool. Like it's so annoying to use. It's really annoying to use.
Yes. Okay, Clément, thank you so much for all the value that you shared. I encourage all the people to go follow your podcast and check out your event that you are doing in September.
In September, yes, big event in Amsterdam. Yeah, about
2025.
B2B with a lot of founders. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, and thank you so much. I'm really grateful. Glad to have this podcast.
Thank you very much for your time, Christian. It was a great to be here.